hard press was nothing new to Jane Brown. She was aware there were many types of them. The one that stood out the most in her memory was her mother frying her coarse hair with a hot comb when she was a little girl. Unbeknownst to Jane, she was about to encounter a hard press that would put her to the test and either leave her stronger or mentally and physically broken. A hard press chapter 1. The back of Jane's neck felt like it was on fire as her head swerved left to right, fighting off Sylvia's advance. Her breath fogged the icy air. She panted similar to a dog chasing someone alongside a gate. She needed to score. She needed to win. She was on the ropes and retreated back foot, front foot, back foot. Sylvia wasn't playing. Her head, shoulders, and back were leaning into a hard press. Seconds later, Sylvia's foil slipped past Jane's defense, and the rubber tip touched her chest. 10-9. The timer went off, signaling the end of the second bout. Oh, shoot! Jane's jaws tightened as she listened to Sylvia's tee-heeing, which annoyed the hell out of her while picturing her friend's large almond-shaped brown eyes squinting, a faint red tinting the fat nose squatting in the middle of her pecan-colored face, and her gorgeous full lips, which Jane envied smirking behind Sylvia's fencing mask. I suppose I would be just as savage if the shoe was on the other foot. I can't let her win again. I've got to shut her short warrior ass down. I've got my nerves calling her short when we're both the same height. The audio of a Sanford and Son rerun and the aroma of smoked bacon trickled into Jane's backyard from next door as she and Sylvia returned to the on-guard lines of their informal fencing match. A moderate wind whipped around their fencing masks, long-sleeved tops, white tights, white socks, and badminton shoes. Sylvia quickly set the timer for the third and final round. "In guard!" "Ready," Jane replied, holding her back straight and stiff as a wooden ruler with knees bent over her toes. Sylvia followed suit, mirroring the fencing guard position as well. Without hesitating, she approached Jane with a flurry of toe and heel movements, zooming in on her vulnerabilities. Jane warded her off as she retreated quickly. Back foot, front foot, back foot. They swung their foils from left to right, causing them to clash at times, forming X's as the noise of their labored breathing, panting, and shrieks rained upon the backyard. Moreover, the squishing and squeaking of their badminton shoes scurrying back and forth across the rubber mat sounded as if the fencers were on a basketball court. Jane continued to prevent Sylvia from scoring, and in due course racked up 5 additional points. When Sylvia retreated and bounced back with a hop and lunge, Jane thrust her foot forward with the momentum of her back leg and struck Sylvia on the chest with her foil. Sylvia let out a gasp mingled with shock, dismay, and disbelief. The timer went off, ending the third round. 15-10, Jane shouted, enjoying every bit of Sylvia's defeat. Jane placed the foil on the table, removed her fencing mask, the yellow scrunchie from her straightened hair, the fencing glove, and upper body fencing gear, marooning the items on a white patio table. Soon thereafter, the cool air's fingers caressed her chocolate face and neck. I would have been devastated if Sylvia whooped my ass again. Since sparring with her, my willpower and stamina have definitely grown stronger. What a workout, Jane exuded, placing a hand on one of her hips. You can say that again. Sylvia placed her foil on the table, removed her fencing mask, the fencing glove, and a rubber band from around her locks. Jane glimpsed Sylvia's glimmering dark brown eyes, noticing the respect they held for her fencing game. It's about time. It's hard to believe 3 years have passed since Sylvia and I met while shopping at Walmart's sock section. Do you fence? I remember asking her, noticing she was searching for white socks as well. It was rare to come across a sister that was a fencer. When Sylvia answered yes, I felt like doing cartwheels. We introduced ourselves and shared tales about our college fencing classes all the way to the checkout counter and became fast friends. I learned the hard way Sylvia was a far better fencer than I, after a 15-6 ass whooping on our first meetup. Embarrassed to the bone, I took immediate action and stepped up my game. I'll never forget how she was there for me when Harry passed. I'll help you put the patio furniture back. Sylvia took a sip of water from a water bottle. Never mind, go and make yourself some breakfast. Jane quickly considered what she wanted for breakfast before Sylvia asked her, Jane, what do you want? 2 slices of toast, a scrambled egg, some strawberries, and a cup of coffee. Okay. Sylvia hoofed it toward the house carrying a large duffel bag, dodging a bunch of gold and pink zinnias spilling into the pathway while Jane rolled up the mats covering the pavers. Help! A Beatles hit was playing on an oldies radio station when Jane entered the house lugging her foil and other fencing gear. After placing the equipment on a nearby table, she moseyed into the kitchen, hungrier than ever. The ground roasted coffee brewing and the sound of turkey sausage links sizzling sent her appetite into overdrive. She observed that Sylvia had changed into a top, slacks, flip-flops, and that her locks were plaited into a fat braid. What a quick change artist. Girlfriend scratched the toast, put 2 waffles in the toaster and cooked me a few turkey sausage links, Jane imparted while washing her hands in the kitchen sink. Okay. Sylvia took a box of waffles and the turkey sausage link container out the refrigerator and closed the door. She placed a few links in the skillet and 2 waffles into the toaster. What's going on? Jane asked. Ryan and I are going to chill out on the East Coast next month. That sounds like a lot of fun. Girl, I'm already packed. Sylvia laughed. Do you have a house sitter? Yeah, we got one. Good. You can't rely on neighbors, cameras, and security alarms these days. Jane, Ryan has a friend who's single, a baby boomer, and he has lots of Benjamins. Here we go again. Jane peered at the ceiling for a moment. Can I pass your number along to him? Sylvia turned from the stove to glance at Jane. What else do you know about him? Jane rubbed the back of her neck with her right hand. He's a brother. Sylvia chuckled. What else do you need to know? The man could be wacko and arrogant as hell. Jane's eyes narrowed. Let me think about it. She had some bad experiences with men introduced to her by friends that refused to leave her home when asked, or they assumed she wanted a booty call when they brought her home from a date. Only the threat of calling the LAPD changed their rude and aggressive behavior, and she didn't want to go through another hassle again. Give me his name and address. I need to run a check on him. His name is Robert Wilson. I'll give you the other info before I leave. Sylvia's toned and taut body shook as she scrambled the eggs. Don't think too long. He probably has a black book full of women, Jane replied, rubbing the back of her neck. I don't know about that. Sylvia popped 2 more waffles into the toaster. I'm just trying to hook you up. Do I seem desperate for a man? Jane frowned. No, but maybe your Virginia is. Sylvia started giggling. Go to hell. Jane couldn't help but laugh, although she didn't want to. Look, after I check Robert out, I'll let you know. Okay. The scent of blueberry waffles popping up from the toaster invaded the yellow kitchen as Sylvia tended to the pre-cooked turkey sausage links. A few minutes later, she announced, breakfast is ready. Good, I'm starving. Sylvia and Jane shared the latest gossip making the rounds over breakfast, and an hour later Sylvia left. On returning to the living room, Jane studied the chunky antique furniture as well as the abstract and figurative paintings and African masks hanging on the peach-colored walls, shaking her head. No wonder I feel like I'm suffocating in this house. There's 20 years of stuff Harry and I crammed into this joint. He shopped impulsively and I shopped to make up for the material things I lacked growing up. I'm getting rid of all the excess stuff. Thank goodness I won't have to hear any smoke from Soul Brother, because his ashes are in the Pacific Ocean near Kahala. Jane cleaned up, ran some errands, and rushed home for a Monday afternoon chat with her daughter, Charlotte, who arrived just as she pulled a pizza topped with goat cheese and marinated vegetables out the oven. Its garlicky essence charged the air. They munched on slices of pizza, a green salad, and drank iced green tea in the dining room serenaded by Billy Paul. His smooth, silky, mellow voice wrapped in Philly funk tore up the song, This Is Your Life, and made Jane think about Pierre. Pierre was such a worldly man, and I was so naive and green. I thought my black ass was going to live in Trousdale Estates. I cried and cried when he ghosted me. I felt like Esther Phillips was singing about me in her song, I've Only Known a Stranger. She perfectly captured my experience of falling in love with Pierre. Everyone was looking upside my head. I was such a fool. Jane sucked in her bottom lip, fussed over her salad with a fork, and sneakily glanced over at her daughter. Lucky Charlotte, she inherited Harry's height, and she has his wide forehead and my high cheekbones. The girl doesn't have to sit in the back of the black folks bus either, because she's tan complexioned. I dare anyone's mouth say I sought out a light-skinned man to marry, so my kids would be fair complexioned. I dated black men of all complexions, unlike most of my dark-skinned girlfriends. They pursued light-complexion men for husbands to provide their children with a caramel skin tone for a leg up. In my case, Harry had a thing for dark-skinned black women. He wooed me, and we fell in love. "Dear, how's business?" Jane asked Charlotte, hoping for good news. "Orders are trickling in, and my clothing line is getting mentioned on a few blogs and online magazines." Though enthusiasm is oozing all over Charlotte's face, I wish she would have followed Harry into the computer programming field or became a chemist like me, or pursued a career in law or medicine, because it takes years of sweat and blood for a clothes designer to build a brand name, and I don't think she has the wherewithal for that kind of commitment. Jane smiled. "Good, it's a start. But there's not enough bread coming in to give up my bartending gig." Jane looked upside Charlotte's head, recalling how her lips had been tight as a pickle jar lid about how much money Harry gave her to start the business. "I hope Charlotte isn't squandering that money and thinking I'll bail her out," Jane thought. "Have you noticed lately everyone is leaving Cali? It's getting way too expensive to live here." Charlotte took a bite of salad. "And it's getting too nappy around the edges," Jane added. Charlotte nodded in agreement and remarked, "The traffic snarls are getting way ridiculous. I'm so bored." Jane took a sip of iced tea. "Everyone is getting on my nerves except for Sylvia and Rita. Why don't you visit Miss Patricia for a couple of weeks?" Charlotte scooped up some salad with a fork. Jane almost choked on the iced tea and decided it was best not to reveal Trisha wasn't speaking to her anymore and that their friendship was kaput. Why Trisha thought I had the hots for Jack is beyond me. I prefer men with meat on their bones, and Jack is skinny as a rail. Somehow the woman is convinced I slept with him when he was in LA. I still can't believe she cursed me out, even after I told her that I was in Santa Barbara with Rita during Jack's LA trip, and even after Rita called her to verify that was the case. Oh, well, Trisha is cool, and New Mexico would be a change of scenery. Jane set the crystal tumbler down on the oak wood dining room table. "I'm just not feeling it right now." "What about a makeover?" Charlotte threw out. "Mom, you look great with a pixie cut dyed reddish brown." Jane attempted to picture her black shoulder-length hair cut short and dyed reddish brown, but couldn't. "Girla, I need more than a makeover. I need a brand new life." "Mom, close your eyes." Charlotte's light brown eyes started gleaming, sparkling, and bubbling with enthusiasm. "For what?" Jane asked. "Please, Mom, is this some new age mess you got from Zora?" Charlotte tilted her head to the side. "Please." "All right." Jane closed her eyes. "Forget about what the chattering monkey mind is saying," Charlotte instructed. "The chattering who?" Jane reopened her slow eyes. "The negative thoughts that drive you crazy," Charlotte responded. "Oh, so that's what they're called." Jane laughed. "Mom, please close your eyes." "Okay, okay." Jane closed her eyes. "Keep your eyes closed and state what you want." "I want a new house," Jane stated decisively and with great conviction. "I'm gonna dance butt naked in every room holding a glass of cream sherry when I move in." "Where do you want to live?" Charlotte asked, unable to stifle her laughter. "Near the beach." The words rushed out of Jane's mouth. "Now open your eyes." When Jane opened her eyes, she didn't feel down in the dumps anymore. In fact, she felt rejuvenated. "There's something to this weird mess," she mused. "Do it. You only have one life to live," Charlotte cried, bubbling over with excitement. "I'm going to do it, and keep your mouth zipped." Jane pounded her hand on the dining room table. "No loose lips here." Charlotte gave Jane a thumbs up. "And there's something else," Jane added. Eagerness sparkled within her dark brown eyes. "What?" Charlotte leaned forward. "Price my designer stuff. I want to sell it online, and tell your friend Ava to give me a buzz." "Why do you need to talk to Ava?" Charlotte's light brown eyes widened. "I want her to fine-tune my art and mask collections." "Oh." Charlotte took a bite of pizza. "What's happening with our skincare product line? This child has a memory like an elephant. I wish I would have had her brains in my 20s. I'm still working the formulas out. I wanted to start selling it on my website in the fall." Disappointment rang in Charlotte's voice and sat on her lips. "Dear, I can't rush the process. By the way, I gave Terrence the heave-ho. Charlotte folded her arms. Jane gazed upside Charlotte's head as if she'd lost her mind because Terrence was a good man and a responsible type of guy. How come? He wanted to tie me down and I'm not ready. A shiver ran down Jane's spine on hearing Charlotte had been on the verge of getting married and suspected another man was in the picture that her daughter was keeping under wraps. Man, how fast time flies. Charlotte is no longer the 11-year-old kid that I watched a sex education video with before discussing the birds and the bees. I definitely was far gentler with Charlotte than my mother was with me. When I started my menses, my rosebuds started blossoming into sunflowers, and layers of fat began to cushion my thighs and caboose. My mother took notice of my transformation, and so did the teenage boys and men in my neighborhood. One day, my 5'6" buxom mother with a rump that would make the ancient Khoisan sisters envious called me into the living room of our South Central LA apartment. She sat on the far right of the green curved banana couch, and I sat in the middle. A Siamese cat lamp lay on top of the black and white TV. Set and a portly Jolly Buddha statuette occupied the coffee table. The radio tuned to KJJ was set low. She lit a cigarette. Jane, the tender-hearted get crushed in this world. You've got to be hard like concrete. I figured something must have happened to upset her whenever it did. She spoke to me in a manner that was too hard for me to understand, and I wished that I could help her out. One of her exquisitely arched eyebrows rose as she said, "Has anyone tried to touch your boobs or grab your butt?" "No. Tell me if they do." My mother took a drag off the cigarette and exhaled. "I don't want you going over to Alice's house anymore. I had so much fun at Alice's house." My mother's order seemed so unfair. "How come?" I asked. "There are too many teenage boys running in and out of her house hanging out with her brothers." My mother closed her eyes. "They won't mess with Alice because of her brothers, but they'll mess with you." She took another drag off her cigarette and exhaled. Then she cited the names of the other girls, adults and teenage boys that I could no longer hang around. "If those people want to know why you can't come over, tell them that I said so." She flicked some cigarette ashes into a round glass ashtray. Lines of distress crowded my mother's forehead, signaling that possibly her warnings were too late. As my stomach knotted up, the thought people that I considered nice could harm me turned my world upside down. "Jane, have you ever seen two dogs do the nasty?" Olga's amber eyes bored into my dark brown ones. Yes, the dogs were having sex. People do that too. That's how babies are made. My mother placed the cigarette into the ashtray. The end of it burned bright as a tropical island sun. When a man or boy releases his seed, it's a liquid that looks like snot, into a woman or girl during sex. The female can get pregnant. My mother searched my young, blank face for a sign of understanding and continued. "You get pregnant from the male seed, the liquid stuff that looks like snot." She eyeballed me. "Have you had sex with any man or boy around here?" No. It was the truth that I hadn't. But if I had, I would have never dared said so in front of my mother's murderous, piercing amber eyes. "You better be telling the truth." My mother cut her eyes at me and stubbed the cigarette out in the ashtray. "Do you understand the male seed, that liquid stuff that looks like snot that they put inside a female during sex will make you pregnant?" "Yes." "Do you understand you're not to have sex with a man or boy?" Olga's eyes were ablaze. "Yes. If a man or boy asked you to come inside their house or car or go into an alley with them or go inside a vacant house with them, you run like hell away from them and tell me." Olga's nostrils flared. "If a man or boy tries to corner you, scream and run like hell away from them. Guys will screw you, brag about it, toss you aside like a piece of crap and crow about getting you pregnant." She sighed. "Jane, if you get pregnant, you're on your own like I was." After our talk, I went to my bedroom and realized what my missing father had done to my mother, and how Rita's big sister, Connie, got pregnant by her boyfriend, Louis. He would drop by their house whenever Mrs. Johnson attended her club meetings. Connie would tell Rita and I to stay outside, but we snuck inside the house and stood outside her locked bedroom, and we listened to the box springs squeal like pigs. Charlotte checked her watch and glanced over at Jane. "Mom, I've got to get going." "Okay, dear." Jane walked Charlotte out to the car, kissed her on the cheek, and watched her drive away. My baby girl is a grown woman now, and I better cherish every moment with her, because one day she'll be too busy running a business, taking care of her husband, and my grandkids to visit me. Jane gave Zora a call as the late afternoon drifted toward dusk, and the sunlight dimmed within the gold-colored dining room. Her call went to voicemail. She figured Zora was probably showing someone a house or meeting with a client at the Wilshire office, and hung up. After all these years, she still couldn't make heads or tails out of her sister-in-law. Jane assumed she would gain a sister and someone to hobnob with when she married Harry. Instead, they bumped heads all of the time, and the only thing they had in common was Harry. She decided to wait a while before calling Zora's office again. "Good afternoon, Zora Brown, real estate agent." Zora's voice sounds so crisp and professional. I can just picture her round face, that French roll, and those black-rimmed glasses. "Hey, Zora." "Hi, Jane, and how's my favorite sister-in-law doing?" "Fine, and yourself?" "I'm blessed. I want to sell the house in the Limer Park rental and buy a beach condo." Jane blurted out the words as if the thought was on the brink of expiring, like the time on a parking meter. "What's going on?" Zora began sorting through the mail on her desk. "The house is suffocating me." Jane started drawing circles on a yellow pad with the blue ink pen. "I want to be free of it and the rental. I get it. There are too many memories of my brother lingering there. It's not just that. I need a change." Jane drew larger circles on the pad. "Don't sell the house," Zora stated after fleshing out the situation. "Why not? Lease it. You may have buyer's remorse after staying at the condo." Zora opened an envelope with her monogrammed silver letter opener. "Where's the down payment for the condo coming from?" "Use part of Harry's life insurance payout." "I see. The money from the 2 rentals can pay the condo note." Jane tapped the ink pen on the pad. "If the condo doesn't work out, sell it." Zora scanned the bill. "That makes sense. I'll touch base with my West Side and South Bay contacts." Zora set the bill aside and opened another envelope. "You can use Ed's property management company to manage your main residence." "I'll give him a call." Jane drew flowers on the pad. "I've set July from our move-in date. I'll get on it and email my buyer agent contract over to you shortly. Don't mention crap to anyone about my business." "I hear you." Zora laughed. "The grifters will bug you to death about living in that house rent-free. Like when they smelled Harry's death benefit check and begged me for money." Jane shook her head, recalling the phone calls from people that she hadn't seen or heard from in years. "Jane, I've got to get going." Zora opened another envelope. "All right, I'll check back with you in a couple of days. Bye." Jane followed up on Charlotte's suggestion about a new hairstyle and made a Tuesday appointment with Rita, her homegirl, the only person in the world she trusted with her tresses.